Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show. I wanted to say motor racing legend, Tiff Needel. Good afternoon,
you can say
Tiff.
that, that's finally, not to keep with that, yeah.
How are you? You well?
Very well indeed, thank you, yes, indeed. I'm more of a TV legend, sadly, than a motor racing legend. You know, I'm more famous for being the bloke who drives cars sideways on television than the former Grand Prix driver at Le Mans racer, so that you know. You have to go with the flow, don't you?
Yeah. Now, I want to talk a little bit about racing, if you don't mind. Is it true that you won a racing car? Is that true?
You obviously haven't bought my brilliant autobiography, which is sold out and disappeared off the shelves now, because it was about 6 or 7 years ago. Well, you obviously should have bought one 6 years ago.
Yes, I should.
Probably available very cheap on the internet somewhere. But yes, you know, I won my first car in this Autosport magazine competition. And lo and behold, you know, that's what got me racing properly. I'd been to the racing drivers' school at Brands Hatch and spent all my money paying £1 a lap at a Formula Ford to drive round and round a dream. But with no family money, it was always going to be a dream. And then I won this car. In fact, actually, if you go on my website, I'm not selling myself here, but just I've jazzed up my website because it's 50 years since I won that car.
That's what I was going to say, actually.
The Tiff.tv website, I've done 50 photos to mark the 50 years of a revolving thing, and you can see the actual magazine competition, the front cover of the Autosport magazine that I won, and you can follow my pictorial history that I've popped up on my website.
Oh, brilliant. I will do that. I will definitely do that. The one thing that fascinates me, though, is how you went from, I mean, being a boy, watching motor racing, to actually having not only raced some of the most fantastic things, including a Formula One car, but also to have gone on to have driven some of the cars that most of us just dream about.
Well, the television career was something that just happened by accident, quite literally, because Chris Goffey on Top Gear broke his ankle, you know, when he was supposed to test a Formula First racing car for Top Gear. And I'd been doing commentary with Murray Walker. I was one of the very earliest expert analysts. So the BBC knew my voice and knew I wrote articles for Autosport magazine and stuff, and so they got me in. But there was an amazing. What I was thinking about, I'm quite rare in a way. I'm literally the kid on the terraces of the football, you know, dreaming of getting onto the pitch. You know, because I was the kid clinging to the fences at Goodwood and Brands Hatch and Silverstone. Just, you know, huge racing enthusiast. But of course, I doubt if any of the Grand Prix drivers on the grid today have ever been to watch a motor race as a kid, as a spectator, you know, mainly because they're already karting from the age of 8. You know, like James Hunt didn't even think of being a racing driver until someone said, you know, why don't you ever go on a racetrack? So he did, and he found himself quite good at it. So I rather love the fact that I am literally the kid that was clinging to the fence that made it onto the grid.
I think that's wonderful. I really do. When you talk about those race cars, the ones, the Formula Ones, the Formula Fords, etc., it's all changed now. Do you feel that, you know, you would want to get into a Formula One car now?
Well, I'm not sure the G-force would kill me. I'd still want to, but I mean, you know, I always get accused of being an old man, you know, looking in the rose-tinted glasses and all that stuff, and I complain about Formula One being too high-tech, but it goes right way down to the grid, sad, because Formula 4, you know, your entry-level single-seater form is too high-tech. You cannot run that competitive. You could not put one on a trailer and go to the racetracks, because the cars are set up with such millimetre precision, and the shock absorbers are so complicated, the settings, and the worst thing about Formula 4 is all the cars are equal to the Joe public. And yet, if you notice on the grids of Formula 3, Formula 2, you'll see the top teams have the sort of the best 3 drivers are all 1, 2, 3 at the same preparation company. Yeah. And it works down the field like that. And it's the same right when you start in Formula 4. You know, I've known a talented driver that was winning races in one team and then changed another team, and he was 8th, 9th and 10th. Because the cars are so high tech, and you know, I was so lucky to grow up in this. You know, I won this Formula 4, and I was a civil engineer at the time, and I was 5 years. I was a civil engineer during the day, a mechanic in my little garage at night. But at the weekend, I was the mechanic and the van driver and the racing driver. Because the cars weren't so high-tech. You know, you could have your suspension could be a few degrees out on your towing or your caster or your cambers. But you could drive round the setup and still win races. But nowadays, that's completely impossible. If the setup isn't perfect, however good the driver, you can't make the car go quicker. Which is why, of course, you know, we see on the Grand Prix grid, you know, they're on the grid in little pairs, you know, 2x2x2s. Because they've all got the very, very good drivers driving them. And, you know, if you're more than 0.3 a second a lap slower than your co-driver in qualifying, you're having a bad day. You know, it's ridiculous to think they're so close. You know, we had a 3-mile course with 21 turns, and they're all split by hundredths.
Yeah.
Because it's the car that's in that groove, and the car. You still need the best drivers to take it to that limit, but you can't really muscle a car any quicker.
What do you think of the British Touring Car Championship now? Because, I mean, that was something else that you raced in.
Yeah, I would say, I keep on saying it's not as good as it was then, because it's not as good as it was then. The great thing about sort of the 90s, the super tourings, I think they called it, didn't they? I was involved. I never did a full season. I did sort of 3-part seasons with Nissan. What I liked, they were 4-door saloons, I think it was 4.2 metres long or something. I don't know what the distance was. They were quite big saloons, which were tricky to handle on the edge, because a longer wheelbase means you get too out of shape. You know, you'll spin the car or lose control, as Nigel Mansell found out spectacularly. And now there are all these tiny, short hot hatches which go the same forwards, backwards, or sideways, like a Mini. And of course, it's a very contrived formula, which it would drive me mad. You know, they've got this reverse grid in the last race of the day, but all these extra weight out of your success ballast. And so the guy, you know, the first 3 in the championship, you can turn up at the next weekend and you can find their 14th, 15th and 16th on the grid, because they're carrying, you know, 1 second per lap success ballast. So I know it means that they don't decide the champion until the last round of the championship, which is what it's all designed to do, you know. They always say that touring cars are so good now. We had 20 different winners last year. Well, that's because of reverse grids and weight penalties, you know, promote the mediocre to the front. I say mediocre, they're still very good drivers, but so I do find a lot of that very frustrating, because I'm such an old-fashioned purist, and you know, just watch Jim Clark win because he was the best, you know. And Jim Clark ran some because he was lap 2 seconds quicker than his teammate, who might be a very, very good driver. So that disparity between the talent of the car and the talent of the driver is, you know, now it's 95% car. Whereas I'd sort of say Jim Clark's day was 95% driver. So
yeah,
it's a changing world, but you can't undo science, is the sad thing. You can't uninvent science. So once someone's found a way of making the car quick around the corner by tiny little suspension changes, you know, the driver is stuck with that car.
You drove a car of my dreams at Le Mans, which is the XJ220, the Jaguar.
Big old truck.
It was a beautiful looking old truck.
Oh, I don't want to shatter your dreams. I'm not doing well, Am. We're going to hit something I like soon. I'll be in the right on. You'll be complaining, the radio list. That was the most disappointing supercar ever built, because we all expected this, you know, mid-engine V12, you know, Jaguar to turn up. And instead we got the Metro engine supercar, you know, the turbocharged thing. And it was huge. The size of the thing, it was about, you know, when we saw the pictures, it looked nice. Then you saw it in the reality, it was a big truck. But yes, I was delighted. I raced one around Le Mans, and that was, of course, the carbon fibre lightweight cars that Blizzard, in inverted commas, won the year before, but they'd been disqualified. It was a great car to drive, but the road version was never really the most sort of loved supercar of its time, as it were, by even most of the journalists, because it, you know, didn't have the engine people expected. And yeah, it's a very elegant look. I must say, you know, I don't want to upset you, Lee. You know, don't want to spoil your dreams.
I'm gutted, but never mind. Let's move on. Top Gear. Now, Top Gear, if you're a petrol head or have any interest in vehicles...
You're going to get me going again. You just try to wind me up with things I'm about to say. It's not as good now as it used to be.
I wasn't even going to ask that question. I was going to say that the one thing that you always get with Top Gear is the guys that they choose have to have that click. They have to all bounce off each other.
Chemistry, yeah, that is the most vital thing to any television series, is chemistry, and you can't make chemistry. And that is what happened with Clarkson, Hammond and May. They clicked, and they bounced off each other naturally. And towards the end of their reign, they were having to make a bit up and scripted a lot more, and sort of make accidents happen, to try and keep the expectations high. But I'm not sure the modern lot have got the chemistry, and it's so hard. I got one with Jason Plato, Vicky Butler Henderson, Fifth Gear. We had good chemistry that's obvious. It is very difficult, and that's why, with Top Gear, when it first started, they never got the three of them together for a couple of years, I think, before they really started this three lads touring the world, which was so successful. Yeah. But of course, it was going into being a light entertainment family show, and now it's an even more of a light entertainment family show, with the two celebrities, and only Chris Harris being the one that's really got any connection with cars at all. And Chris is brilliant, he can drive brilliantly and does that side of the game. It's an evolving world, Lee, you see. You can't look back anymore.
That you also drove another car. Now you're probably going to destroy my my love of this as well. The Ariel Atom V8. Oh
no, that's a spectacular fun machine. A bit drafty, obviously, due to the holes in the bodywork. But I nearly killed myself in that hill climb going down. It was a wild animal, because I had that supercharged, the ultimate Atom doing a hill climb for Fifth Gear. That wasn't it? Yeah. And they are hysterically good fun. And I think a lot of the times that was the most powerful version. I forget what engine it had, wasn't it? It was the sort of ultimate Atom. But so often, even with Porsches like GT2, GT3, to have fun on a track day, you're better off in the base level, because it won't try to kill you, or it's easier for an average driver to play around with. Like I would say, going a Mazda MX-5, fabulous little sports car with only 200 horsepower or something, but beautiful handling. You don't have to get into a high-powered car to have fun on a track day in your road car. But yeah, the Atoms. Well, have you had an Ariel Atom? Was it just something you have an inkling for?
No, it's just one of those things that I just sort of look at and think, oh yes.
A bit of fun. That's what you need. Something puts a smile on your face in motoring, right. And we get too deep. Like I said, you can have fun with a little Mazda MX-5. Yeah. You haven't got to have a GT2 Porsche.
The McLaren F1 prototype. Does that lap record still stand at Millbrook that you put down?
Yes, I believe I'm still the owner of the UK production car lap record, 100, my Guinness record, my poster on the wall. A ridiculous thing I did for Comic Relief, the annual charity event bash on the BBC, which collects millions. It was just last week, wasn't it? They collect amazing amounts of money. And Top Gear, the theme for that year was for all the celebrities to do a record-breaking task somewhere. And so Top Gear decided that I would be the man to go out and break the UK. They trawled around the record shop, I think, and found this one that could be beaten. But at 200 miles an hour, the tyres blistered, and I nearly probably killed myself with the aid of Comic Relief, because I nearly lost control at 200 miles an hour. The Millbrook 2-mile bowl, the track, it's round, so it was just a constant radius with quite a bit of banking. Of course, the tyres would just heat up very quickly, even in 2 miles. And we always knew it was going to be a limiting factor, and they did blister. I wanted to average 200, but it was quite a windy day, and when the tyres blistered, I nearly lost control. It was. We thought, that'll do. We'll keep that record, and I don't think anybody's been stupid. And if you went out on slick racing tyres, you'd beat it easily. Yeah. The production car record is very much reflects having to use road tyres, although some of the road homologated tyres now they're using racing are pretty much a slick racing tyre, so with a few grooves in them. But yeah, that was quite a day. I did enjoy it. The McLaren F1 is still the best ever supercar ever, because it's normally aspirated 640 horsepower, wasn't it? No computer assistance, manual gearbox, manual brakes, no power assistance to steering. You sit in the middle. This was Gordon Murray's creation. Yeah. Obviously, I'd love to drive his new, was it G50? What's the code name? His new car that Gordon Murray's producing.
I think it is the G50, yeah.
But yeah, the V12 engine, the BMW engine wailing away. So the McLaren F1. And of course, 640 horsepower was still almost, too much. If you Rowan Atkinson had a couple of crashes in his. And it's ridiculous now. You get Bugatti Chirons in 1,500 horsepower. But of course, you couldn't sell that to a human being that's on the public roads, so they have to smother them in computers and traction control. So, of course, when you open the throttle, it's a computer that decides how much power you have. Oh, no, you can have 200 now, it's a bit greasy, or, you're going around a corner, you're going to have 300. So you don't ever really get 1,500 horsepower, because the computer won't let you have it. So you're not driving these cars anymore, you're operating them. And it's the same now with all these 650, 750, 850 horsepower, supercars and hypercars. It's just bragging rights.
Yeah.
You don't need that much to have the most amazing on-track performance. So it's a strange thing, they're all competing. And I'm always getting bored with these hypercars, because you've now got the electric hypercars with 2,000 horsepower and 0 to 60 in half a second or something. And it's all getting a bit silly, to be honest.
If anybody is listening to this and they think, I know that voice, where do I know that voice from? It could be from video games, couldn't it?
Yes, I did one of the first touring. Toka 2 is still, it's much revered on the internet now. If you talk about the original, with the second Toka touring car, which I did the commentary for. Yes, the voice has been used hither and thither. So it was 15 years on Top Gear, then 17 years on Fifth Gear, and now I'm doing Love Cars for the YouTube channel, which I still have a lot of fun doing. So, in fact, it was just 2 days ago, I was on a radio show doing, Mystery Voice, and they got me because they knew my voice. So my voice is also, I can go to a pub or something and order a drink, and only after I've ordered the drink, the bloke standing next to me on the bar says, I thought it was you, but it was only when you spoke that I knew it was you.
Now, people can get up close and personal to you, if I'm right, at Thruxton. Are you still doing
Yes, one of my little sidelines at the moment, which I've been doing for 7 years now. We managed to get BMW to lend us an M3, which is now an M4, because it's the coupe version. And I do these 3-lap passenger rides. And it's, we haven't had anyone compare. I don't know, about 7,000 people now who have sat beside me, stone silent, screaming, laughing, swearing, whatever. And I really enjoy it. It's quite knackering, because I could do, and the record's about 40 guests in a day, and it's 3 laps each, so that's 120 laps. So that's like, it's like driving 300 miles flat out, talking all the way along, doing the same old spiel with each guest. Here we are doing 140 miles an hour. This is the corner Damon Hill went through 170. Oh, we're a bit sideways now. And every guest goes 140 miles an hour, and the sideways around the corners, the slower corners, and it's lovely, really, because I meet the public a lot, and it's amazing. I take kids on booster seats, 4-year-olds, or I'll take grannies on crutches or something, and they'll all sit beside and laugh and cry on Zimmer frames and things. And they can't believe that a standard production road car, albeit a high performance BMW coupe, can do what I make it do out there. So it's fascinating. I do enjoy it. It's a bit knackering. I do about 3 days a month down at Thruxton. The perfect Christmas present. There you go, a voucher. Yes. For 3 laps with Tiff at thruxtonracing.co.uk.
I wouldn't mind that. If anybody wants to buy me a present, that'll do. One last question, if you don't mind. What is... I know everybody asks you what is the best, but what is the worst car you've ever sat in and thought, I never want to drive that again?
Well, the FSO Polonaise was pretty horrendous. That was an Eastern Bloc device that was falling apart when it was new. But the trouble is, nowadays there aren't really any bad cars. The production and manufacture of cars, whether it's China, Korea, Czech Republic, are really good nowadays. So it's very hard actually to find a bad car. What was that other electric thing in London that came out, that really tiny, original one? It was so awful that I don't even think about it now. But so there aren't many bad cars, sadly, because those when your TV show, it's pretty hard now to take the mickey out of any manufacturer, because they're all producing quite good cars. But let's hope Mercedes are the best car for Lewis to win the championship in the next couple of things. Verstappen can wait he can win it another 2 or 3 years in time. And, Formula 1 is getting very exciting for motorsports, even though they're driving these horrible, great, huge, heavy, long. Have you seen the difference in a modern Grand Prix car one about 10 years ago? I mean, they're about 3 feet longer. Yeah. 3 feet longer and 200 kilograms heavier with this hybrid stuff. But Lewis and Max they're just so much better than anybody else. It's almost embarrassing to the rest of the field, I think, at the moment.
Oh, it is. It is. But those cars are just computers. And I always think drivers aren't drivers anymore, they're technicians. Because they have to drive these computers around.
Yeah, I say operators. The trouble is they have to understeer, because otherwise you couldn't have, if they're going to oversteer high speed, they'd spin. In fact, even now, you notice they go the wrong way. When you correct these modern cars, they get sideways. They put the opposite lock on, and they actually spin what I call the wrong way on what we call a tank slapper. Yeah. Because they ungrip, and then as soon as you get them gripping again, they overgrip, and that's why the steering spits you the other way. But you couldn't have any sort of opposite lock at over 150 miles an hour like they used to in the old days, drifting through Woodcote Corner with Jochen Rindt and Jackie Stewart.
Those names.
So it's a hard thing. Also, when you watch the onboards, because they've got so much power steering, it just looks like Lewis Hamilton, when he's right on the limit, chasing, breaking lap record after lap record. It still looks like he turns into the corner and turns out of the corner, And of course, they got the flappy paddles, so they can change up as they come out of the corner, change down on the way in while steering at the same time, and only 2 pedals. So it is very easy to operate a modern Grand, but to get right to that very limit and right up to the maximum grip is still an incredibly skillful thing to do. It's just not so visible. So that's why I think, the Formula One, if you watch IndyCar, but they've got no power steering, they've got shorter cars, lighter cars, you can see the opposite lot going on, the driver fighting the wheel, and you know that the guy's on the limit. And I think the problem with the modern Grand Prix Cup, the onboards, there's nothing to give you that feeling that he's on the edge, guys, on the edge, which is what science will do for you. I get some people complaining when I want to go back a bit with the regulations, and they say it must be the peak of technology, Formula One, we can't have it dumbed down. And then I quietly point out, well, they don't have ABS brakes on them, which is sort of peak of we all have on our road cars.
Yeah.
But I shall continue to watch. They also would switch off if you don't like it, but I still love every form of motorsport, and we'll continue to watch.
Good. Well, Tiff Needel, thank you so much for your time. It's been brilliant chatting with you. I wish you well. And next time you're going round, it might be me sat next to you.
I look forward to it. Okay. All the best anyway.
Thank you very much for your time. Take care now.
Bye.
Bye-bye.